All right. Well, welcome to Afterthoughts with Kaylee and Lee. This is our last one before summer.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you didn't catch last week, we did say that we're going to take a break for Afterthoughts for just the summer months.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the fall, when we start back up with fall series and kickoffs and all that, we'll start up with Afterthoughts again. So this is, like I said last week, this has been fun, actually. And whenever you add work, even I think you mentioned it last week, whenever you add work, there's always the concern of like, oh man, that's just one more thing. But this has actually been like pretty freeing. It's freed up time for me as opposed to adding, just because of having to be more organized in the speaking. So now I feel like I have more time in the week.
Awesome.
But we did an extra thing. So that's bad math.
That's when you know it's worth it.
That's going to be logical math. Okay. All right. So we're doing a switch because now I'm asking the questions and you're doing the preaching. So why don't you give us the summary?
Sure.
What you talked about.
Yeah. So I got to wrap up our Romans series. And so we looked at both Romans 15 and 16, which was hefty, but really valuable. And so essentially what we landed on was a unifying truth that God has given us everything we need, individually and collectively, to glorify him with a spirit of unity and endurance. And so we looked at 5 questions. We looked at why glorify him. So essentially, we know that he's worthy to be glorified, but is it really necessary? And what does that mean? And then we looked at what has he given us individually to glorify him? What has he given us collectively? What's the risk if we don't? That was the 4th question. So what if we don't glorify him or really believe that he's given us everything we need? And then what's the fruit if we do? So in other words, like what changes in us and in our lives if we operate from the belief that he's really given us everything we need? So.
And I think, for small groups this week, to go through those 5 questions again, that can be a good exercise. But we also have some other questions prepared, just engaging with it in a bit of a different way, asking different questions, similar questions, but also different in a bit of a different angle.
More personally applied.
Right. So you did ask a question, why glorify God? And so I guess the question that I would have for small groups for you guys to kind of wrestle through, and maybe you could even answer just from yourself personally, in what ways do you feel personally prompted to glorify God, right? Because there is that personal response. What I do love about Romans, and again, you encapsulated it, is that there's kind of this personal connection, but there's also corporate. And that's I guess it's not even a tension. It's just simply the 2 things of the Christian life is what's God doing for me in my heart, in my mind, and transformation in me as a person, but also that there's a collective to that. For you personally, just on that individual, like what prompts you to glorify God?
I mean, an easy one is like, it sounds funny, but beauty. And I used to think that was like materialistic.
Oh, okay.
But often I'm realizing like it's just environmental beauty. So whether I'm driving and it's golden hour, or I walk into a space that somebody has made beautiful because they want you to be welcome in it.
Oh yeah, like some people are great at that, creating space for hospitality in a very beautiful way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like Naramata Inn. I walk into Naramata Inn and I'm like, oh Jesus, you're amazing. It's so weird, but just like because there's something grounding about environments that are intentional, and for me, like for my makeup personality, it's like I connect with it means a lot to me that God's intentional. So then when an environment reflects that, that's like a personal prompt for me for sure.
Wow, I like that. I had a bunch of thoughts go through my head, even just of one of the most recent places where I glorify God is I was out golfing with guys who are not even believers, but are guys who matter to me. And I just, nice day, we were laughing about some silly kind of old man joke. And And I just went, God, thank you for this. Like just having a space to just be in community with people. And I've done that here at church. I've done that on a Sunday morning as we've been singing. I've done that, having people over to our house this last week just to celebrate Isaiah's graduation and just going like, God, thank you that we have people in our lives that are like family, right? Like that. So there's lots of, like, it's interesting how that just flows out.
Totally. And it doesn't take much for you to like, just the question alone, like it's a form of renewing your mind, right?
That's right.
And it's like, oh, this, oh, and this, and this. The second you think of one thing, you actually think of many.
That's right.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's good. So then you also talked about how God has given us each other. So we've talked about this kind of individual thing, but then again, there's that community and that corporate that's so important for us to talk about. So I wonder about a discussion that would be interesting for groups is just share a time where you felt encouraged by the unity in community, whether again, it's in church or another kind of community, but where have you seen people draw together for single purpose or like one body, or just even drawing together in their glory of God. If it's a church community, especially, where have you seen that? I think, again, it's important for us to see that community thing because I think in our culture today, we can get pretty individualistic.
Totally.
This is about my preference, my taste, the way I want it.
Yeah.
I don't like how you said that. I don't, right? And we even have a lot of songs that have a lot of I in them.
Yeah.
Just a quick offside story of at Bryn's graduation this spring at Trinity, they had a guest speaker, and he is from, I want to say, Zimbabwe. I'm pretty sure it was Zimbabwe, but it might be neighboring country, but it's like right there. Yeah. And he's the head of the church in the country, essentially. He was one of the bishops. And he just laid into the crowd in North American culture, essentially, of like, all your songs have I in them. We should never sing them again. And I was like, okay. Like, now, obviously that may be a little over the top, but I really appreciate because his emphasis on community and why that matters was so good for those grads to realize you're part of a community of believers that have graduated and are off into the world and continue to plug into community that will build into you. And so he just talked again about like the beauty and the importance of community in their lives. And so anyway, that it just reminded me of that. So that's
cool.
Good.
That's awesome.
Then you also, and I think our last question for today is that you said that it takes bravery to believe that God has given us everything we need. So I'm going to get you to unpack that thought just a little bit for today. But here's the question, is where in your life do you think you could use a little more bravery to believe that that's true? You just very quickly just unpack that thought of that it takes bravery to believe that God has given us everything we need or that he is enough.
I think because we're in tension with our flesh and his indwelling spirit within us, right? And so so it takes a choosing of aligning our spirit with his spirit, and like not a choosing because we've chosen it, but like an acknowledgement of like, right, I need that alignment. And so in doing that, I'm choosing to deny my flesh, and that just denying your flesh alone takes courage, takes bravery, takes choice, takes like an element of doing something that is not even like in our social norms normal. Like it's not a part of the broken world system to deny yourself. It's a part of kingdom system, right?
Right.
And so if that's the culture if that's our citizenship, right? That's where we want to align. But it actually takes bravery to like put on the armor, to like stand it, like I'm on this kingdom side. I'm not on this empire side. I'm on this empire side. You have to make a choice to do it. And sometimes just believing that somebody's worth following, Jesus, believing that you have a collective of people with you, believing that he's given you what you need. Like, I just think it takes a lot of courage.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for unpacking that. And I think, again, like there are areas in our lives where that's easy, and there are areas in our lives that's very difficult.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. So again, like maybe for some coming to church and being a part of that community is easy. For others, it's very difficult.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, even for some, they have no problem saying, hey, I belong to a church, and I go to Summerland Baptist, and other people are like, I don't even want people to know I follow Jesus. Right. Like there's lots of different ways in which we are brave and not brave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that is actually a really good question. I think of intentionality and obedience as words that kind of go with some of that, of choosing to step into that kingdom. Right. It's an intentional obedience that I will do it your way, but I don't want to, but I will.
And I believe that you've equipped me to do it.
That's
like
right.
if I actually believe that he's given me everything I need, that will be the fulfilling, like that will be my fulfilling operation mode. Right. So my fear of how will that sit in this environment, or my fear of how will that make me seem to people or whatever, will actually like, it's like that hymn, and the things of earth will go strangely dim. Like that's a reality, right? Yeah. That's a fulfilled reality of believing that he's given us everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for unpacking that. And, and again, I think unintentionally, but also everything is always intentional in that, you know, we are talking through and we're thinking through scripture, but we also believe that really, truly we are led by the Spirit, which means he's leading us to talk about things in the way we need to talk about them. But interesting that Philippians series that I've been pounding through and is going to continue these thoughts on. In a very much knowing God way. And when we know him and we get to know his kingdom, we are intentionally then choosing to step into some of that. So we're going to revisit some of that stuff again over the summer. So like I said, love it when a plan comes together, and it's usually the Spirit plan. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, and thank you for like being a part of this for the year and in our sermon series and also in Afterthoughts. And we will pick these back up in the fall.
Sounds good.